Do you want to know the secrets behind Unai Emery's success as a manager? A very consistent career that he's had so far. I'm going to look into his tactical preferences. I'm going to look into how Aston Villa may line up, how the team may change, and what is going to happen immediately for Aston Villa. The one thing that I want to show straight away is we should probably exclude PSG from these stats. But as you can see, going back as far as 2013, I've got Arsenal in there just to show some of his Premier League experience. But Villarreal, Arsenal and Sevilla, 1.78 points per game at Sevilla, 1.85 points per game at Arsenal, and 1.78 points per game at Villarreal. It's incredibly consistent. This has been going on since 2013, and it breaks down as about 50% of the time he's winning games, 25% of the time he is drawing games, and 25% of the time he is losing games. But if you look at it here, I have it broken down, excluding PSG, like I said, because I don't think that's a fair reflection of where we're going to be at with Aston Villa. At a cursory glance, if we take a step further into his league campaigns during the 6 seasons, they do make very consistent reading. As you can see here, 63 points, 76 points, 52 points, 70 points. Obviously 18 doesn't really play a lot, but here 58 and 59 points. It is worth reminding that this is from Europe's top two leagues. This is from the Premier League and this is from La Liga. If you look at his average points, what it would achieve in the last 5 seasons in the Premier League would be a 7th place finish, a 7th place finish, a 5th place finish, 7th and 6th. That means that every single time, if Aston Villa were to continue this points per game, we would be qualifying for Europe almost always. A few times when we got 7th, maybe not. It's not a direct metric because, of course, Spanish League doesn't work the exact same way as the Premier League, but if we were to continue on his average points per game for the rest of the season, we would end up with around 55 points. As an Aston Villa fan, 55 points after our start to the season sounds nothing short of incredible. We just need that consistency. What, 1.7 points per game? That sounds amazing. It feels like for the last few years, we've been lucky to be getting just above a 1 point per game. One thing I do want to dive into is just the shape and style that Emery is going to use. We did look at it previously in a video where I put up the video how Emery beat Brighton, and you might recognize this image for it because throughout his career he's used the 4-2-3-1, but also this 4-4-2 image as you see here. It's a little bit narrow, which is something that we didn't really like under Stevie G, but it felt like Stevie G didn't really have a plan. That is just not the case with Emery. Against Brighton, you could already see the way he was drilling into the side to be compact. And I actually think a game against Juventus in the Champions League last year from the last 16 kind of highlights what Emery is immediately going to start bringing to Aston Villa and what we're going to see drilled into the players. Here we have the lineup. It's the 4-4-2. It's a little bit small, but you can see it there. We have Lo Celso in behind Damuja, and then we have the players' average positions. For me, this straight away shows how compact we are going to be potentially against teams that play better than us. But we saw against Manchester United, if a team does give us space, Emery's not going to be incredibly defensive. Everyone said, oh, if we're up by 1 goal, we won't go for it. What did we do against United? We went and made it 3-1 straight away after half time. Conceded that awful goal just before the end of the half, and then straight away attacking immediately. JJ made it 3-1 and it set us up for that famous win that I like to talk about a lot. But we're not talking about that right now. What we're talking about is the defensive shape under Emery. And as you can see here, we set up, I say we because this is us now. There will be a 5-3-2 and it will make it very, very tough for sides to create a lot of chances. This is of course in the Champions League, away from home against the top side. But we're going to be against Manchester City. We're going to be against Arsenal. We're going to be against top teams that have a lot of the ball. And I would think this is the exact kind of shape that we are going to see ourselves adopt. There's a second still here just from the second half, just to show the consistency of the positions. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 and 2. It's a very consistent shape that Emery will use. And the one thing that he seems very happy to do, which I touched on before, is he doesn't care if he concedes sterile possession. Like, he doesn't care if you are knocking the ball around the back. What he cares about is making sure that you don't concede a lot of big chances and you don't just have these gaping holes, which if you think about back to under Stevie G, there was so many times where when we were trying to play expansive attacking football that we just have Tyrone Mings and Konza at the back with no fullbacks, no support from a defensive midfielder. It was an absolute mess. This was in the Champions League, and as you can see, yeah, Juventus had more possession. They had more shots, but they only had 2 big chances in the entirety of the game. And what happened in this game was that we got to the 77th minute. It was 0-0, and Villarreal they scored a penalty, and then Pau Torres got a second goal from a corner, if I'm not mistaken. And it just shows that Emery is very willing to just like take this pressure on, but be so solid and don't give any space at the back, that if his attacking players, who he will put faith in and who he will attack quickly with, if they can just nick one goal, he's convinced that he is going to have the tactical nous to just see out these games. Another image I saw that really interested me was just how much there will be a lack of space at times, which it might be a little bit weird for Aston Villa fans to get behind us, but this is from another Champions League game. It is Villarreal against Bayern, and yet again we see this space. Obviously this time we can just see a 4-3-2, but the one thing that I would like to highlight is the congestion that Emery is going to have at the back, and every player is going to need to buy into this. I seen the players doing the bleep test yesterday. John McGinn looked like he might have heart failure. Ollie Watkins looked like he could have run forever, but if you're not going to buy into his ideas, I'm pretty sure you're going to be out of there. I think Emery's just going to want players who can get involved, who can do what he requires early doors. And look at this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players around Gnabry, one of the best attacking midfielders in the world, I would say. I think that's fair to say. And look, there's just no space. Everyone buys into this us against them mentality, the siege mentality, which I think it's something that Aston Villa have just been missing desperately. And personally, I think this is where the immediate future lies with the coaching. Whoever adapts quickest to Unai Emery's methods is the players that I think are going to be involved from the get-go. The players that we're going to see being trusted, because I do think that's going to be a massive thing. There's been times when players looked like they just down tools for Stevie and maybe they weren't buying into his methods. It was obviously not the most exciting of football, I'm going to be completely honest, but if you don't buy into it under Emery, I think you're going to be in very, very, very big trouble. The reason why I did look at Sevilla and Villarreal more than PSG is because even though Aston Villa do have a lot of resources, our club is more like a Sevilla and Villarreal now, and probably for quite some time, than it is a PSG. I don't mind looking at Arsenal because they were in a bit of a transitional period and it wasn't like a formidable Arsenal side. It wasn't the side that Arteta's even built today, but I do think the Premier League is in this little bit of a weird transitional period itself. Newcastle look like they're going to be the next club to break through, but Leicester have turned off the tap. They're not spending money like they once were. Everton have spent a lot of money, but it's been quite unsuccessful. We don't want to follow that path. West Ham looked like maybe they were going to be the next side that would break through, but it seems like the top 6 is somewhat set, but there is the possibility to be that 7th and 8th place team. The goals that we had at the start of the season, Brighton and Crystal Palace will potentially be dark horses for that. I personally think if Emery had been in from the beginning, it would be us who would be the favourites for that position. With the World Cup going down the way it is, and the fact that there's going to be this mini boot camp that Emery has for all his players, the fact that he's going to be drilling them with the coaching ideas, I don't think it's impossible that we could end up with a deep run in the FA Cup or potentially pushing for that top 8. If you had said that to me a few weeks ago, I would have laughed it off, but it's starting to feel a little bit more realistic. The one thing that I wanted to look into was, if you see here, this is the average points position: 6th, 7th, 8th, 52, 56, 58. That is last year. Year before, a lot more competitive: 65, 62, 61. 2019, if you get 8, it's only 56 points. 2019, 54 points. 2018, we're looking at 49 points, which means that if we continue our points per game that Emery has brought in, obviously we're not going to, he's won 2 games out of 2, but if we follow in the footsteps of his career over the last, decade, then maybe this is the year that we finally get into the top 10 and beyond. Emery, for me, is by far and away the best coach that we've had since Martin O'Neill, and I personally think that he actually blows Martin O'Neill's CV out of the water. Yes, Martin O'Neill did have quite a lot of success up at Celtic, but this man has won 4 Europa Leagues. He's won a League 1. He's won 2 cups in France, 2 cups in La Liga. Wherever he goes, he wins cups. I would love for Aston Villa to win a cup more than anything, but becoming a team that can push on into the top 10 and then start using our resources to actually sign the top players to bring us to that next level, and maybe we can follow in the footsteps of what Newcastle have done. Newcastle have spent a lot of money, but they've not signed any players that we could not have gone after. It's a very exciting time to be an Aston Villa fan. Unai Emery is an elite coach. I personally cannot wait to see us against Liverpool on Stevens' Day. Imagine if we beat Brighton, Man United and Liverpool in a row. The atmosphere in Villa Park is going to be incredible. That is my thoughts on Unai Emery. I'm Fintan Hand. I am addicted to Villa. If you enjoyed this, I would love if you hit the sub button, get in the comments and let me know what videos you would like to see next. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.